actually stuff that's shoveling the dirt, stuff's going up. We have 7. But
how many in the pipeline? So permits, structural, architectural work being done.
We have 10 more going on. With 4 of those granted being a lot split around the corner. That's going to be 4 homes. If the county, so far the pre-app meetings, the county said that we should be good to go. We just have to make a small modification. But yeah.
So 17 homes in the total pipeline. Ari, when did you do your first ground up deal? Full house.
So my first full house that I did for ground up was actually personal residence. So it was an owner's permit. I didn't use my license at all, even though I've had my license in 2017. I did my own house and I liked the process. I got to pick my own stuff, which every homeowner loves. Big thing for me to doing is like family, trying to keep everything in-house as much as possible. So that if I did my sister's house as well, and that's how she actually helped finance one project in Largo. Pretty risk averse. Hard money is not fun. We learned that we took out our first one February of this year, and then the second one was a bridge loan to purchase something else in March. I only have 2 actual loans out for now. Everything else has been privately funded throughout people partners in the project.
But I think the interesting thing, guys, is 17 projects is a lot, right? 7 active on its own is a lot. 17 in the total pipeline, that's phenomenal. But I think the general idea is like Ari's just figuring it out and jumping in, right? It's not, he just financed his first deal this year. Like all of us are thinking about financing our deals. He just financed his first deal this year, and he's already at a point where he's got the comfortability to get into multiple projects at a time. We did a walkthrough a couple of days ago, and he's just like learning lessons every day. And he's like, hey, that's just a part of it. Actually, I'll be honest, yep, messed up here, but that's just a part of it. Learn from it. Now he's taking it to the next project. So I think, the idea is jump in. Like you don't feel like you're ready, but you're probably very ready to get going, especially if you're using resources like a community like this one.
This one is like one of my, say, quote unquote mess ups in the sense that it's overbuilt. I saw that house, saw what it sold for, saw the square footage, got excited, like, yeah, I can copy that. Market's going up. I'll buy this. This was purchased for $80. And I'm thinking, that one sold for $550. Okay, I can do that. No problem. It doesn't have a garage. This has a garage. Bonus. Yeah. But the square footage is basically identical, heated. So I'm thinking $550 plus a garage plus this area. I'm good. Of course, market did what it did, and then now it resold I think at $520. So I think $520, $530, one of those two. So now I'm thinking at the end should be around $510. Not where I want it to be, and then also market rent is lower than expected. So market rent for this, even though this is a 4.3 with a little office, so it's technically a 5.3, but don't tell the county that yet. So yeah, market rents are gonna be just over 3, nothing crazy. So I'm gonna have to do the same thing with this one, pull out less money than I would like to when it refis, and it's just a little bit of a learning experience.
What would have been optimal square footage? So you overbuilt by going 2,900 square feet. What would have been optimal where you would have got the most value for your buck?
So that's where it's like kind of a contradiction. So optimal for this area square footage would be anywhere around 1,1700 square foot. That's perfect. And I actually have backup. I had a conversation with my good friend over here, Mike. We did a little analysis of the area, and that's actually what he came up with as well.
Okay.
And it holds true. But the contradiction is, that's small of a house. This is big of a property.
Yeah.
Sure. Sure. How does that function? Like I just mentally can't grasp that.
You mentioned to me in the pre-call that a lot of the families here are multi-generational families, right? So having the bigger square footage down the line may actually pay off a lot, right? And then also you have all of this lot back here. So what are the other options that you can do with this lot? We talked about that a little bit in the pre-call too.
So potentially one of 2 things we can do is hopefully add an ADU later on down the line back there. So just different rental income hopefully, and then the side, it's a little driveway, they can do it. And then he also did mention multi-generation, that people renting that one are multi-generational. So they can split the rent and hopefully have another property similar, and they're paying above market rent. Why? Because I'm allowing the amount of people there. They upkeep it, they're grateful because they're able to do that, they have the cost, but then also just the caution that we have that many people in a property, the wear and tear on it. So it's that balance of picking the right tenant.
Sure.
To make sure that they keep your property how you give it to them day one.
Something else to point out. So I know you said this was a little unique, the siding, if you want to talk about that.
Yes.
So we talked about the stucco being unique because of the build of the home?
Oh, yeah, okay. So normally, it's kind of a no-no. This is stucco. Don't stucco wood frame houses. It's just, the moisture gets there a little bit easier, and just with the settling, it's more prone to crack. But just the subs I've had, the experience for people doing this, I'm gonna keep this. I don't have to worry about coming back if I were to sell it to somebody and fixing everything. I would just fix it in-house. Much more cost effective on the build, and then just we're keeping it. So there's some things I would do differently if it would be for a resale for a different party. This, as you can tell, these two are identical, just mirror images. I'm one to not try to reinvent the wheel. So if some of you might have looked across the street, you see the facade elevation, you might see what's going on here. It's pretty similar. So I may or might not have gone to public records, seen the plans, told my architect, hey, this sells for this price, I think I can do it. Word up a budget, think, hey, this is profitable, why do something new? Just do that. Of course, they had to tweak it a little bit because copyright laws and whatnot. So it is slightly different in some sense, but the facade and everything else, essentially the same. One difference, this is wood frame versus that. Pretty sure that was block. And these two, luckily they were individual lots already, but I bought it as a package deal from the gentleman.
Why did you decide to do wood frame on this one instead of block like the one across the street?
Florida, more block is preferred, but me, just my background. I grew up framing, my family does framing, wood framing. So we know how to throw this up quicker than most people and do it in-house, so cost-effective and just knowledge-wise.
So how far are we in this project now? How many weeks today?
This week's, we started second week of May, so about 5 weeks.
And when do you think we'll be fully done certificate of occupancy on this property?
End of September.
End of September.
Like my team's actually pretty good along, and this is nothing crazy, pretty standard, medium price point home.
Yep.
So I'm not trying to make it look like $1 million plus. This ARV should be around 430, 440. I have another house appraised, one less bedroom, same square footage, so it should be right around there as well. Pretty safe bet, especially since that one sold for 430.
So we're talking about a 4-month project. He's going to be out of this project, let's call it 80,000 or so in margin. So for those of us flipping, thinking about ground up development, this is a really palatable price point if you're early on in your scaling. You can choose to go ground up and just have the process instead of troubleshooting and engineering and fixing problems. You can just choose to go through a process ground up, really for almost the same cost as you would to get into a flip, and the timeline is basically the same. So your strategy on these is not necessarily to flip, right? You're planning on renting these, right?
I'm planning on renting these, hold on. I'm doing other stuff in the area, so it's just part. Plan to rent these because in the area we're doing more projects. So I just want to, if I hold, I have more projects trying to get the property value to go up. Yep. So when I do sell, hopefully the market is a little bit better, and that one will set the trend, and then hopefully a few more will follow. You can tell there's two lovely wells in front. Those each were 10K. So I have a person, used to be a neighbor, he did them pretty quickly. And of course I had to do where we're standing on. This is the septic. So you got a septic here, septic there. We had to do that because they're same thing. There's actually no water main meter available. It's on Livingston. This is another 28.7 before the build cost. So just in consideration when you're looking at a property or looking at deals, make sure that those are in, because if I didn't have my numbers tight on that, most of my profit would have been gone.
So I know there was a rule that you had to set it back a certain amount of feet from the road, or was it, I'm sorry, the septic had to be a certain amount of feet from the well. I think that's important for everybody too, because if you're thinking about your lot dimensions, you're gonna have to have those dimensions when you plan, right?
So just a lot of things to take into consideration before you even decide I want this house on this property. Public utilities was available. Water, I would save myself 10K a well, so less, but I still had to do the connection fee, which is about maybe $800 to $1,000 each. So about 9K savings. If there was sewer available, I would love that more because it's 18.7. Connection fee, again, like around 1,000 probably. So I would have saved myself 17 and 9, like 26K if utilities are available. So I prefer to have utilities, but then stuff like this, people don't want it for that reason. So I'll take it. I'll take it.
So many of us are investing in the city, right? But where I think it's important is if you're doing an up zoning play or a lot split or a carve out. So this is a lot split. This is one lot, he made it into two, right? So, but you can also do a carve out where if this was a house, if this was a house you're planning to remodel, but there's enough land for you to do a build over there, you might carve out that piece of land and do a build there and just remodel this house, right? These are the type of plays that we're seeing in the city, but you got to think about the infrastructure. You got to think about the horizontal stuff going on as you're planning. Don't just go and buy a property saying, hey, there's enough feet of frontage here. I think I can split this thing and it all makes sense. Just depending on where you're investing, think about these other details and think about the costs, right? As Ari said, that could have been a deal killer for him. 51 grand, the margin's 80 grand on this property. If he spends 51 on, setting up the city water, it's a deal killer, right? So make sure you do your due diligence, especially if you're going to a strategy that you're new to. Lean on guys like Ari, guys in the group, or other experts that have done this before, just to make sure that you're crossing your T's and you're dotting your I's.
This is my favorite stage of construction, just because this is what I was used to growing up. My pops would take me to job sites, and then I would just smell the fresh lumber.
It smells like money.
Well, besides that, it's nostalgia.
Like money.
Nostalgia. And right now, once the walls start going up, you actually see the house taking its shape. You actually see the floor plan. Because it's one thing to see it on paper, say, hey, that's what it's going to look like. But then you just walk through it and it's like, hey, this is going to be somebody's home. This is going to be, memories are going to be built, even if there are going to be tenants. But lifelong, hopefully, on-time paying tenants.
He's doing everything in lockstep, right? So that just makes it way easier. So he's building 2 homes, right? Okay, 80,000 margin. That's fantastic. He'll get to likely just refinance it and keep it and build the equity, which I think is the real play, not just the 80,000 in margin. But think about how much easier it is for Ari to manage 2 projects that are just moving in lockstep with each other, right? So, you don't necessarily have to buy in the city to find gold. You can be a little bit on the outskirts, find creative ways to take lots and really invest in areas that there's not it's not a ton of saturation of investors, and you can find awesome plays like this where he's going to build $160,000 in margin in 3 or 4 months, and then the equity, as he continues to buy out the whole neighborhood and make it look pretty like this, the equity is going to take off. So this is, $160,000 for Ari today, but I think in 5 years, these properties are $500,000 for Ari and his family, right? So think outside of the box, think of ways to be as efficient as you can. And then, of course, Ari, too, he's keeping it in the family. His father, I saw him out here working his tail off with his team, putting up this framing. So everybody is winning in Ari's playbook, right? So that's if you can find ways to do that with this group, with your own personal community, I'd say you do that.
You do this too, that do close to where you actually live, so in your own backyard.
Sure.
So that helps with managing one, and then 2, like my son goes to school right down the road. If I gotta pick him up and then come here to address somebody or sub, I can do it no problem. Versus if I'm investing in Pinellas County or Pasco or something, that's out of my way. I can't always make it there, and that puts timelines behind. So one of the actual reasons I'm able to do this at that speed is because it's right around the corner from my house. I live around the corner. This is so convenient.
Hey, he lives within a mile or so from here, right? So all of his projects are here. So I think there's a few advantages to that. One, just proximity for things like that, deliveries, or just being a presence on your projects is huge. He doesn't have to worry about that quite so much because he's got good relationships, but I think in general, just being a presence is great. So if you're closer, that's helpful. Another thing, and I talked about this with the BTO team recently, if you just decide on your submarket and you master the submarket, it makes everything so much quicker for you. You don't have to really worry about analyzing deals. You send Keely, 3621 Ola Street, she knows the value of that property if you give her the square footage. She doesn't even have to go in MLS, and that's because there's mastery of the submarket, right? So invest in your own backyard. I think it makes a lot of sense. Mike Scarpa's doing that. He's probably going to make $300,000 in his own backyard this year, right? So take advantage where you can, make it easier on yourself. But I also think it just makes everything much quicker if you really decide, hey, I'm going to master this 2 square miles right here.
Granted, this is in my backyard. I know the neighbors, so this person who referred me this guy, he actually lives down right there. He owned 4 properties next to me. I purchased something for him before. He said, hey, guy is currently incarcerated. He needs some money to get out, and he was wanting $200 for both. Couldn't really make that happen. and we kind of ended up at 150. I was a little bit more than 150 because I had to put money in his commissary. I had to do a lawyer deposit. I did what I had to do to make it work, and long and behold, he signed in jail, and we got these two for just under 80, 70 something. It was good. It was a mobile home. We did have to tear it down, but then we just scraped everything, and yeah, we're here.
You mentioned you had a bird dog, right? So
yeah.
A bird dog is somebody that is just in the market, kind of as opportunities come up, they're finding them for you, or they can just be actively in the market, knocking on doors, going to networking events, whatever it may be, right? So A bird dog is somebody that's actively out there. So this person that found you this property is just kind of a family bird dog that knows that you guys buy property in the area, right?
Yeah, he's just a guy that bird dogs for me, but he's been in the area, like he grew up here. He's been here for 50 plus years. And those are people you want because they know everybody in the community. So something goes on, he knows about it, he tells me. He's gave me like 4 calls about stuff in the area. Not all of them work out, obviously, but I'm always the first call and I'm really appreciative of that. After I purchased one thing from him, we get to talking. Every time I see him, we have conversations. And he just mentioned something about, oh yeah, I was watching WWE last night. And so that just kind of triggered something. A month later, long and behold, they're at Emily. So I buy tickets and then I somehow, I can't make it to the event. Hey man, do you want to go? I got to go take my son to this event. You sure? Yeah, here you go. And ever since then, he's been very, very, very grateful. All right, and I'm very grateful for him as well.
So think about how awesome that is, right? So I don't think there's anything wrong with compensating your bird dog, right? You find me a deal, I compensate you, everybody wins. Most bird dogs do operate that way. But this is just a person who's deep-seated in the neighborhood, has been here for a long time, likes Ari's family because they have a presence in the neighborhood. And all he did was buy him tickets as a gesture, which, a guy, of course, he made memories, but now Ari is forever in his favor. And as people talk about, as they talk about wanting to sell their home or having a need, who's the first person that he thinks of, right? So I think if you're in your submarkets, get to know the neighbors, talk to people in the neighborhood. If you have that one house that's old and who's been there forever, go and talk to that neighbor, make friends with them, right? They'll find opportunities for you. It's really important. So we acquired it for $76,000 per lot, right?
Yeah.
That was our average. Let's talk a little bit about the build costs and what you're expecting in terms of results.
Okay. So yeah, on the HUD, it was $76,214, $19 each. That was everything, closing costs included. And then from there, the build budget's around $255, which is significantly less than the one over there, because I already have my crew all settled up, and that's why I'm able to get that. So total all in, I should be around 340 and change, with projected after build value around 440, 430. It's somewhere around there. Hopefully, I'm right around 98. Granted, that's without financing costs. So if you do finance, take some of that down. But no, so 98K in about the 4 months that we mentioned here for build time is actually after everything's all ready. So don't just think you buy the land and 4 months later you do this. No. There's, of course, after you closing takes 14 to 20, depending on what. Then you got to talk to your architect. That takes another 30 days. And then from there, at least another 30 to 45 days with the city or the county, depending on how nice they are that month.
Yep.
So it's a little bit longer than 4 months, but once the shovel's in there, it's about 4 months.
So we're 4 months pre-development and then 4 months of construction, right? So
yes.
8 months total build time. So how many square feet is this house? Or they're both the same, right?
They're identical houses, just mirror images. And they're 1732 each, heated, and 23 and change with the garage, the little front porch.
So $147 a square foot. So we talk a lot about allocating a square footage amount to different types of rehab budgets, right? That helps us underwrite, this is a full gut, so we're gonna be, $65 to $85 a square foot. It's a mid-tier, we're gonna be, $35 to $65, right? So we like to put these thresholds on it, but what I think is interesting is that he's building an entire home, right? We're talking about foundation and footers all the way up, right? He's building the entire home for $138 a square foot, right?
Around there.
So not bad. I mean, recently we've been paying, $100 or more per square foot on full gut renovations. At this stage, so we have foundation and footers, sticks are up, sheathing is on. How much does it cost, just in construction costs, not the land, to get to this stage?
This stage, I am including the well and the septic, so just under 100 to get it to here.
Just in construction costs?
Construction, including well and septic. So
Okay.
without the well and septic, right around 70.
Okay, all right.
And that's like my in-house pricing.
Okay.
I do have some things like I inflate a little bit, but right around 70K is a safe bet to get it to here.
So what I think is interesting, all right, so 70K, this is a pretty advanced stage, right? He's not far from closing things up and getting to the finish line. So 70K to get to this stage, he paid, let's just call it 75K for the land. So if you have $150,000, right, you could get to this stage before you involve a lender at all, right? And that gives you some time to make some mistakes, to drag a little, to spend more time in pre-development, to go through all the hurdles, to learn. It gives you some time to do all that without paying 10% interest in 2 points. Something to think about. I know Mike has done that before too, right? Where he got pretty far advanced before he tapped on the lender. So if you guys have cash, right, and you're thinking, man, I really want to go ground up instead of doing a flip. If you have a good amount of cash and you're buying in an area like this where the land is relatively affordable, 70 some odd thousand. In the city, of course, you're paying 200,000 or more for land. If you're a little bit further out in the outskirts, you could pretty much get to this stage. And I'll tell you what, if you get to this stage, a lender, even if you have zero ground up experience, you're gonna find a lender who's gonna say, yeah, I'll lend to you, right? Especially if you have some flips on your belt, right? Because you're really not far away from just doing the same work that you would be doing in a flip at this point.
What do you think the rental is going to be on this property?
Just under 3, just because 3, right around 3, because of the area.
So if we're at 3,000, have you calculated the debt service coverage ratio? Is that 1 to 1.1, 1.0, 1.2?
For the debt coverage ratio, because of the area and because of where rents are right now, I have to leave some meat on the bone for it to self-service. So I can't pull out as much as I want. I have to pull out less so that it can pay itself off and me not have to worry about bringing more money besides the rent every month. Once it was on paper going down, one of the drawbacks I saw of this project. But yeah, it is what it is, and it's still gonna have equity on it and appreciation. So
when you're doing build to rent, which is what Ari's strategy is on this one, when you're doing build to rent and you go to refinance, a lender is going to require that you have some skin in the game. Mm-hmm. So they're going to say the highest you can likely go to at this point is 80% loan to value. So you take 440,000 times 80%. That's the greatest loan they're going to give you. So no matter what, of course, he has to leave some cash in the deal. But what happens is if the rent that you can fetch on this property, that $3,000, if the rent doesn't meet 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, depending on the lender, for the debt coverage ratio, then you have to borrow less. So let me flesh that out a little bit more, right? So you would say if he's collecting $3,000 in rent, that means his total mortgage payment can only be $3,000 to meet a 1.0 debt coverage ratio. But usually lenders, they want you to have a little bit more wiggle room. They want you to cash flow a little bit. Technically you're not, even if you do on paper cash flow because you have expenses in the property. But generally, so if if $3,000 is what he's getting for rent, that means the mortgage payment really has to be a subset of that $3,000, $2,800, $2,700, whatever it is, $2,600 for him to meet the requirements for the lender for the debt coverage ratio. So what might happen is Ari gets to the end of the deal and at 80% of loan to value, if that's not enough for that debt coverage ratio, he may have to bring a few more dollars to the table so that that mortgage payment is reduced to meet the qualifications for the lender. Hopefully, if it's just a clean, easy burr, right? He can just, of course, refinance, 80% does it. He takes as much cash as he can back out of the deal. But that's something to think about, right? If you guys are going into projects, you want to underwrite up front, go into the future. Here's what I think the future value is. Multiply that times 80%, apply the market rate, I don't know, let's call it 7%. And then where does that fall compared to what I think I could rent the house for? And you really want to be on par. So if I can get $3,000 for rent, I want my total mortgage payment with everything included to be $3,000 or less, right? So just something to think about. If not, you're gonna have to bring some cash to the table, which I still don't think is a bad deal, because if not, you sell this, you make $80,000, you're gonna pay likely short-term capital gains if you finish it in 8 months. So you're gonna pay, just like income, you're gonna pay 25, 30%, depending on your overall income level. You're gonna pay $20,000 in taxes anyway. I'd rather bring another 20 to the table, refinance it, not pay it to Uncle Sam, and then accumulate the equity over time.
My coolest project, I just think my personal house, just because it was my first one, and I'm figuring stuff out, breaking stuff. Still standing, so I did a good job.
For now.
For now. It's 6 years now. A lot of good memories and just me remembering at the face of construction, oh, this is where I have my bed and where my dog would be. It's like, I don't know, I just think of that, the final product of the actual memories you're making at home. So that's why it's the coolest. This would be the coolest for somebody else, but not for me.
I don't know if you guys caught it when he talked about it in the shade. He just went on public record. He pulled their plans. And I think the rule, if anybody knows it, please tell us. I think it's 15% or 20% you have to change. You have to make little tweaks that are technically, it's 15% different than somebody else's plans that they've already paid for, right?
Yep.
Is that the rule, right? 15
somewhere
or 20?
around there.
Okay.
Right. Has to be different. Copyright issues and whatnot.
And it can be the littlest things
Yeah.
that you technically say, hey, yeah, it's 20% different. But I think you would say these houses are pretty much the same as the one right across the street.
Yeah,
Right?
the houses are identical.
Yeah.
So it's just, for the neighborhood, I wanted to look as similar as possible. Well, the engineering plans, the cost would depend on your architect and engineer. For one-story homes, you can get away with an architect. They can stamp and seal it. If it's 2 stories, you need an architect and an engineer. So that could add up to your costs. So that's one consideration when building. Do I want a 2-story house? You might have to involve an engineer because it's 2 stories. 1 story, architect, done. For these, I actually did a separate engineer and architect. Full disclosure, the architect was a buddy from high school, the engineer. And then the architect is another guy that a family friend used in the past. Cost-wise, if you do a reuse fee for some, you can get away with $3K plus something. So cheapest you can get under $4 for something that they already have in stock that's ready to go, and it's quick, under a month, that they can have like 2 weeks, sometimes even 3 weeks. If they have a survey, they have everything. Others, more custom, I paid almost $8,000 for a 1,300 square foot house for St. Pete. So depends on the architect. And that's just the architect, no engineer. So it just depends who you use.